everyone. I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask Mr. Smith if he would lead us in the pledge.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank you for being here this morning and responding to the notice on the special call meeting. We will begin with the superintendent, who will give us an overview.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming on this beautiful day. Several things we've been meeting with the county, including yesterday for quite some time with Mr. Honeycutt in preparation for our local budget, which we have some information on that. First off, what I'm actually looking for is we present the budget, what additional items we want to ask for on that list. What we've been talking.
Let me stop you just a second, because your notice said that the bus parking lot fence repair was closed.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was following I printed this out for that. I apologize.
I just want to make sure you were.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What was the issue?
They are separate, but the notice said that at 10 a.m. will be the bus parking lot fence repair, and then after that will be the Wi-Fi.
I apologize. I printed off my, I will then, Mr. Solis, I will turn that over to you on the parking lot fence repair.
Our building, our bus parking lot here, one of the buses went out of gear and rolled backwards towards Skill Creations and knocked the fence all the way down. So I presented to the facilities committee and I left that stuff in there. 3 bids, Moy fence, Seegers fence, and I can't remember the other one. The prices was like $9,600 to much higher than that. And we need to repair the 300-foot fence from the road to the end because it's laying flat on their landscaping over there. Thank you. Seeger's bid was $96.69, and Moy Fence was $99.48, and Scott Fence Company was $13,860. But the fence is laying down. It's our fault. We need to get the fence up, removed, and one of these companies needs to put the new fence back up.
You said the bus back into
The bus with no one out there came out of gear and rolled backwards down that hill and took the whole fence down. So Mr. Laster and Robert Lee got me the 3 bids, and with that fence down, it is not secure bus parking lot anymore. People can walk right over the fence and come into the property. Plus, we need to get our stuff off their building.
Do we own the thing?
Yes, sir.
It missed it in that building by about 3 foot. We were lucky it didn't hit the building.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion because we heard this in the facilities committee meeting this morning. I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with the quote from Seegers, and that amount was what,
$9,669.
9,000.
I'll second
Okay, we have a motion on the table. It has been seconded. Any discussion?
The question I have is, do you have any insurance for that?
It is below what our deductible.
Would that go under, would it go under the vehicle or the property insurance? I mean, when you got,
Well, I suppose the state, since it was a state yellow bus, I'm not sure what portion I know our insurance coverage, we do not have our deductible is higher than what the cost is.
what policy were you talking about? Our liability insurance or property property insurance? When you said, you know,
Well, it could, well, the bus outlet is damaged, so probably the property, portion of the insurance.
It could be either one.
your insurance, man, yeah, you understand what I'm saying? I mean, when you come about a vehicle,
You got your vehicle insurance, if you get another vehicle, if you get somebody else's property, your vehicle insurance, liability insurance should cover that.
If you would like,
If
we
you get your own
can,
property,
we can investigate doing, whatever the claim, if there is a possibility of filing insurance.
I guess that's what I'm saying.
if you were saying the property insurance was deductible, it's still money deductible on the property. You still might have vehicle insurance that will help pay for that. It wasn't driver care, it was saying that, it was going back to the person, comes out here on his own, and goes back.
And there's all kind of caveats on auto insurance and stuff like that, about different sets of circumstances. All I say is I talked to you, about that.
We'll investigate. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Hayes, the North Carolina State Tort Claims Act covers the school buses and school bus drivers. And if it's a negligent situation, the Tort Claims Act should cover it.
But the subject at hand is to fix it, so,
And that fence, you know, has those slats all in it so folks can't see in from the Skill Creations next door. That's why it's very expensive.
Well, it would not, if they do cover it, I mean, we got a motion, that we need to fix the fence, obviously, we need to fix the fence, but regardless of that, the insurance will pay later, but regardless of what our motion is to fix it.
but if you don't file, pursue it.
That's true.
All right, so the motion on the floor is to follow through with the bid from Seegers of $9,669 to repair the bus parking lot fence. Are we ready for the vote? All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Any nays, follow suit. Okay, motion passes. Now, do we have to adjourn the special meeting to go into the budget work session?
It says immediately following, so.
Okay. We just follow through?
I think you can. But wait, you basically give a notice that once the fence issue is over, that you're gonna.
Okay, well, at this time, if there's no other concern about the fence, Mr. Hayes has been given directions to review how we might be able to pay for it. Then we can move to the budget work session. And that begins with Dr. Dunsmore giving us an overview.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Before I turn it over to Mr. Hayes, just to bring everyone up to where we're at with the county on several issues. We've been talking with them with supplements for teachers. We had presented a proposal to them last year that included a 0.5% increase each year for all certified staff across the system. And that was, for next year, it would be right around $420,000. That was on the table. In the last 2 months, we've been talking very extensively about also adding in for our low-performing schools and the supplements for them. And I'm going to hand out, pass around, take one of those and pass it along. Ms. Burton, thank you. What I have on the first piece of that is the first sheet I handed down is a list of all of our 13 low-performing schools. And the second sheet is just with our 5 low-performing schools. Originally, as we've been talking what to do and where we're at. So what those proposals were, we followed what we had done this year at Goldsboro, Goldsboro High School, which was a signing bonus for new certified staff, a retention bonus for our present staff, as well as then a bonus for attendance, as well as a bonus for meeting all of the professional development lesson plans, and we have a whole caveat of checkoffs that they have to meet to get that bonus. And then finally, there was $1,000 for everybody if the school exceeded growth, which essentially would bring them out of low-performing status. With both of those also included our classified staff at a lesser amount. So what we originally gave the county were the 13 all low-performing schools. I was told they were more interested in doing that as opposed to doing the 0.5% across the entire county. As I met with Mr. Honeycutt yesterday, he asked me for just the 5 schools, the lowest 5. As most of you are aware, we were looking at how we could quantify those schools, and we looked at the poverty rate. So the 5 lowest were our highest poverty schools. Mr. Honeycutt indicated he wasn't sure which direction the commissioners were going to go. That was what was presented to him. He did share with me that he felt they were more inclined to do something for our low-performing schools, and whether or not they just did 5 as a test or to see how that worked, or if they were going to go to all 13. I think it depends on their actual budget. So both of those are on the table with the commissioners. We also talked about our paving across the system. We've estimated about $850,000 in paving projects for our parking lots. As most of you are aware, our schools, majority of them were designed for this pick up and drop off traffic. We've had a lot of fender benders. We've had a lot of issues just because of need, as well as expanding parking lots and repairing, including the lot here, as you can see, is in pretty poor repair. What we presented to Mr. Honeycutt and what he and I have been talking about is similar to our technology funding they've done, that we would do this over a 5-year period, which was $170,000 per year. The county is in the process of a huge paving project of their own, so we've been discussing that for some time. The other issue that's been high on the discussion list is safety and security. As everybody here is aware, Mr. Sauls and his crew has done a great job this year of getting cameras in our elementary buildings. We're far from having coverage that we would like, but we are at least getting main entrances and exits. And I think, Mr. Sauls, we have just about all but one school done at this point, or are they all done?
We started out with 16 elementaries, and I think we are down to 4 that don't have enough, but all of them have some. And we were trying to go the swipe system by sometime next year.
So we've been getting prices on the swipe cards, similar to the access to this building that some of our newer buildings have. We were looking at it right now at an estimation of $540,000 for a bare minimum is a starting point. Part of that security, Mr. Honeycutt wanted me to share with his board, they've already approved 4 additional SROs for next year. And that was after they added the additional coverage this year since the tragedy in Florida. What I would like to ask the board as we move forward, before I turn it over to Mr. Hayes to go into the budget details, which we don't have a lot of flexibility in, is what we want to add to that list to formally present to the commissioners and ask for. I brought up in the facilities committee We have some big ticket items that are, in my opinion, should not be on our small capital outlay budget. The two field houses, one at Spring Creek High School and one at Rosewood High School. We have tennis courts, particularly at Charles B. Aycock, Rosewood, that are in desperate need of repair. In fact, I believe Dr. Lewis's son, who had major knee surgery, that happened on Rosewood's court. But the biggest safety and security issue is the bleachers at Eastern Wayne High School, which is about $147,000. At this point, I've instructed the principal not to pull those bleachers out. They're safe, unsafe, and I don't want a tragic accident there, but those projects combined would be just about 50% of our small capital outlay budget. And as we move into each year, as I shared with the facilities committee, last year we had compressors go out at Carver Elementary, which, if my memory serves me correctly, that was somewhere around $380,000. So we talked about getting a contingency fund on top of that for emergencies. We're going to look at some different ways that we can present that. I think from my position and my request to the board, I think the more we make public of these issues, and as most of you know, we're going to do a little tour with the commissioners that want to see the shape of some of these buildings. But a lot of these projects are dated. I know, Mr. Flowers, you bring up the field houses that you all been talking about since you were back on the Board of Commissioners. And each year, this list is growing, not shrinking. And the cost of this list is growing, not shrinking. And my concern is some of the safety of our students with these processes. So I would like some direction from the board of how we want to prioritize these. If you remember last year, we had 5 items. We prioritized them. They funded none of them. The supplements are back on that list. The paving's back on that list. I think we need to really focus in on some of these things that we need. I know they're looking at a tax increase this year. I'm not a proponent of raising taxes. We all have to pay them. But as I shared with Mr. Honeycutt, I'll be more than happy to step up and take the blame for asking for this stuff, because I believe it's important to our students. I believe it's important to the school system, and if they need to blame somebody, I'm more than happy to stand up and take that on behalf of our children.
Dr. Dunsmore, in listening to the county commissioners and what they talked about and what we've talked about, the safety and security, I think, is paramount, in this. And I don't see, with all the comments that they've made on their board, where they would turn us down on any efforts that we make to try to improve the safety in our schools and our buildings.
I have a company coming in Friday. One of the things that we're looking at is, and it's getting a lot of swell across the country, we have the knock boxes at each of our buildings, so our fire department, our sheriffs and police can get in. The problem is the floor plans of our buildings, we worry about unrolling them, whether they're going to crumble up, and plus the changes. So this company comes in and basically uses a CAD program and puts all of our buildings, our layouts, everything computerized. And then we give that to the sheriff's office, the fire departments, the local police, obviously, we keep that. But then each of the classrooms across the entire system would have an alarm. So if that teacher, that office person, or whoever hits that alarm, it immediately alerts sheriffs, this building, everybody, and everybody can react. They also have, and it's not an expensive program. It's an upfront cost to put it in, but then it's there. And if they hit the button twice, it's an emergency, and that will lock a building down like that. So there's some counties here in North Carolina that are presently using it with rave reviews. I'll have an exact quote for them Friday. He did ask me, when I say he, Mr. Honeycutt, to be prepared to talk to the Board of Commissioners specifically to that. We're looking at about $180,000 to put that entire system in across the county. My opinion is that's a very meager amount of money for what we get in return. Because if our sheriffs, our fire department is responding to something at a school, they're gonna be able to pull up on their smartphone right where that is. You know, which doors they're going in and where they're heading. Once we have swipe cards, we can have that tied in to the sheriffs, the police department, the fire department, that their card access would grant them entry right into the buildings. So it's a layered process, but I agree with you. That's why we've been, the sheriff and I have talked at length about this. I agree. I think that at the very least is just a no-brainer.
Dr. Dunsmore, was that the purpose for, because I read in the paper last Thursday or Friday that our chair and vice chair were going to be in a safety meeting with the sheriff. I didn't know anything about it until I saw it in the paper. Was that got anything to do with what we're talking about?
So that meeting a while back, I can't think of the community group, had a meeting. Mr. Dirksen and I attended, the sheriff was there, Chief West was there, just to discuss safety and security on a lot of issues surrounding our students. So we do have a lot of community support with that, which I'm excited about. I'm a little apprehensive in a lot of open meetings to talk about what we're doing security-wise. But I also know, as a parent, I want to know my kids are safe. I want to know what the schools are doing to keep my kids safe. So my opinion is we're not anywhere near where we need to be. And we estimated $540,000 for security with swipe cards. With the additional CAD information, that could increase. But I think that has to be number one. As well as the supplements. I just think the county needs to step up and fund those. And I think we need some sort of contingency fund on our small capital outlays for these. We got aging buildings, stuff's breaking.
Dr. Dunsmore, this meeting that I believe that Mr. West is talking about, is Mark Colbert?
Yes.
Okay, well, I want to make it clear to the board that Mr. Smith and I had not been invited and was unaware of this until Mrs. Ishii brought the article to my attention on yesterday. So, and they canceled the meeting because it is in conflict with our Teacher of the Year, Assistant Principal of the Year, and Principal of the Year banquet. So, we were unaware of that.
And I think, Mr. Dirksen helped me out, we only had gotten an email about that last Thursday.
He had sent an earlier email, but we didn't put we simply just didn't see the connection as far as the event.
The conflict.
The conflict, but we spoke with Mr. Colebrook and he's rescheduling that meeting.
Well, did he tell you to invite the chair and the vice chair?
No, he had a group email. I think the folks that attended the meeting that Dr. Dunsmore and I did back, I think February or actually in March timeframe, after the Florida shooting. And I think he just took that email group. So I don't know who all, in addition to that, he reached out to. Only the group that I saw was the ones that attended the previous meeting.
Yeah, one of our suggestions from that first meeting, there was a lot of mental health folks there that were speaking on the need for counselors, psychologists, and different supports from the mental health community, and the schools were there to speak up. I think the goal of this meeting was to get more of the decision makers around the table to see what we can do to get some things in place at the school.
Well, Dr. Dunsmore, is this tied in with Erica James and what we've been doing all year long?
No, ma'am.
So it's separate?
I think she's on that email list.
She's on that list. She was invited to that meeting. I think she was there at the start of the meeting but couldn't stay. But that's separate from the Raise the Age initiatives that we've been working on with her.
Well, is it separate from the pact that we signed?
this is something that he's just trying to bring community members together to figure out how they best can support us. As I spoke with him actually earlier today and shared with him as we look at what their goals and outcomes are is, how they best can support us, because, there are already ongoing discussions between the superintendent and the sheriff and the police chief. There are already ongoing discussions with the different mental health services. So I think Mr. Colebrook's just trying to figure out how best to have the conversation with community members and involve those that are just wanting to help support us in our efforts.
And I think as Mr. Pridgeon said, the more folks we have standing up and letting the commission hear what our needs are, the more apt we are to get funding.
All right, are you ready to, turn it over to
Mr. Hayes, yes.
Can I ask you one
Before-
question about this slow well?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Money you sent out to the county.
Yes.
I see the criteria, I guess, for the first phase or whatever of this, for these teachers at these local performing schools. But in no way is it tied to grade performance unless they meet growth. That's when they get the 1,000 or the 500, but
Well,
for the
yes.
first three criteria, there's no guarantee. If that's what we're truly looking at is teachers to make a difference and increase the grade, to help increase the grades. That doesn't say anything about it.
Well, I think ultimately we can all agree good teachers, good administrators in those buildings is what makes the difference. But a lot of the discussions we've been having with this board is getting to stop those teachers, particularly certified teachers, from leaving these buildings. This way we can, because there's a supplement or a stipend attached to this, we can make this that if you go there and you receive this, we need a minimum of 3 to 5 years that you stay there, whatever length criteria we choose as a first step. It's keeping staff at Goldsboro High School, since we initiated it this year. We won't have the test scores till October. That'll be the tail of the tape.
My question on this is, what is the timeline for this pilot program? Because say they all jump off the low performing list the next year. Do we
Well, that's
have
what I
that
shared with
within-
him. I think at minimum, we have to leave this. That's why I wanted the criteria
Right.
as the poverty is our quantitative
criteria. Okay.
criteria, because
So it's based on poverty, not low performing. That's why I'm good with it.
Yes.
Thank you.
that way that money would still fund those schools. Yeah, our goal is to get everybody off that list.
Right.
But I think as we've had many discussions here, the expectations in some of those schools, the workload, it's a more challenging population. They're coming in with deficiencies that a lot of others don't have. So we are expecting more of that staff, and they deserve to be compensated.
Madam Chair, question relative to the high-need school staff bonus. Make sure I understand this. If we're looking at the 5 schools, where you see signing twice, the first category is for your certified and your second would be for your classified, and then and that follows down that whole area, first certified and then classified.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So the potential total of that includes the performance bonus. We have to let them know what the worst case scenario would be if all the schools hit that signing bonus. That's what the total would be.
Okay.
So basically, they're looking at if they could do all middle and elementary schools, or do just the 5 high poverty.
Well, the second list with the 13 are our 13
That's your
schools that
first
are on
list.
the low, yes, that are on the low performing list.
Mhm.
That was, and if you look at our poverty scale, that they all meet that criteria. That way, we're hitting all those schools. Now, with the exception on the longer list, Goldsboro High School, we've been funding that internally through the Restart model. But those funds are not reoccurring. So we have budget flexibility, and we're able to do some of those things this year and next year, but we won't be able to continue funding that. I also have a meeting with the city manager, Mr. Stevens, to talk about the schools and whether or not the city of Goldsboro would pick up the schools within the central attendance area that Goldsboro City could fund, and that would allow the county to fund more of the schools on the other list.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The budget process is in progress. We have received some preliminary allocations from the state. Not everything is in, so the state number is as good as we could get based on information we have right now. We don't have the federal numbers yet either, so I left that exactly as it is. But if you look at page one, what I wanted you to do, what I want you to see was the revenues we have coming in, and then what the source of that, those dollars are. And if you look down at the charts, you can see the big blue slice of the pie. That's our state funding, which is close to 70% of what we get from a revenue perspective. With that, the state has very specific guidelines in terms of what can be spent in the various budget categories. So, for instance, 001 is state teachers, and that is the only thing that we can fund out of that category. There are no principals or central office or anything else that goes in that category. So, the flexibility that we have will be with the restart for Goldsboro, some of our low wealth funding, and then the 069 money, which is, we have some flexibility in terms of what we can spend in there. But again, I just want, 069 is the kind of like disadvantaged of part of this. The PRC is actually at risk, is what I'm trying to say. So it's at risk money. And so you can see how the money comes in. The state funds us based upon our cash flow needs. And so we get the money ahead of what we spend for payroll, accounts payable, and so forth. The County of Wayne basically gives us 1/12 of what we're going to be funded for the big dollars. The small project amounts, they fund us as we spend the money. The same with the U.S. government, we get the money based on what our cash flow needs look like. We will not get our federal dollars until October. That's when we'll officially get the information. But we'll get a planning allotment that we can use to tweak these, and hopefully it won't be a whole lot longer. So anyway, I just want you to see what the revenues look like. It looks like a lot of money, but we end up having to spend the bulk of it based upon the guidelines that the state provides in terms of what can be spent in various spending categories.
Mr. Hayes, the state revenue there was like about a $4.5 million increase. Where was most of that money allocated? Because as you said, they tell us what.
Right, most of it's gonna be in teacher salaries.
Teacher salaries.
And benefits. Our benefits.
Well, that's what I saw. Well, that's good.
Right.
For that.
And they're gonna actually give us our number to use per teacher. They just haven't finished finding that yet. So my estimate, it looks like it'll be about that much. Again, the retirement number is going up a little over 1%. We're moving from 17.1 to 18.4 in terms of what we have to fund. Insurance is going up about $220 per person for the year. So anyway, that's what most of the increase is.
Do you have any idea what our pupil allocations will be for next year for the state?
They have not, they've not finished defining what the numbers are, so they've not given us that.
In Wayne County's money, their increase there, is that an allocated increase?
That increase we'll see when we go back and look at the schedule, but it's some of the things that Dr. Dunsmore was talking about.
So, yeah,
Is this what you're requesting, but they haven't approved it yet?
Well, so no, we have a funding formula through them. So what we did, we increased it by 1%, which was an estimate. They haven't finished. Allison hasn't gotten the exact number, so a lot of that's based on sales tax and where they get our revenues from. Mr. Honeycutt and
But
Allison.
But our sales tax money is separate from Wayne County, that's all tax money.
But they have a funding formula on their overall revenues that we have access to, so we get a percentage of that, and they haven't determined that exactly. They're confident we're somewhere.
So they're tying it to their sales tax revenue, we get a percentage of their sales tax.
Yes, and other revenues that we
And if
have.
theirs would be, if it were to go down, if the economy would go down, then that amount would decline.
If it goes down, we're held harmless.
Right. So they look at their revenue streams, and whatever it goes up, they give us our portion, based upon what they're gonna fund us of that increase.
Okay, when there was a time that Wayne County had an automatic increase, and then they stopped doing that. I think at one time it was 5%, trying to bring us up to a higher level, and then that was stopped. Is there any kind of automatic increase
Any of
in
the,
dealing with the county now?
any of the increase be based upon,
Their
whatever their
revenues.
revenues increase.
That was back before the 2002, 2003.
So when Mr. Wood was the manager, and what a lot of counties do, they go to a funding formula with the schools so we can plan our budgets. We know it'll never go down, because if
I
their
think that's statute,
revenues.
isn't it?
Yeah, if their revenues drop, they hold us harmless. I think in dealing with Mr. Wood and Mr. Honeycutt and our Board of Commissioners, and you'll see in one of the upcoming pages, a lot of their additional funding is a separate line item where they want to see we've spent the money on that specific project. The technology initiatives being one, I believe Edgewood's in that, and the Wish Centers are in that, and there's one more that I'll look back through and let you know. Wheelings, excuse me.
You know, I appreciate this special line item, but I guess what I'm wanting the board to understand, because it took me a while to understand this, when they give us a special line item, okay, that does not have to be repeated the next year. The expense money that they give us, by statute, they can't lower that. But if they give us money in a line item, so they're always hesitant to raise the base amount, because they can't back up on that amount by statute, because obviously that's for expenses, expenses are constant. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hayes. Okay. So when we ask the county for an increase and they give us a line item, it's really not an increase in the base allotment for our expenses. It's a line item for a project.
Yes, sir.
So are we asking for an increase in the base amount?
We can.
Well,
Yeah, that's part of what we had talked about was that contingency piece that would be in
obviously
the
the
base.
state pays for our fuel.
Yes.
But I'm using that as an example.
Right.
When you say expenses that the county kicks in on, the expenses are constant, and it's generally a constant upward trend. So if the county's base amount that they allot to us stays constant for a number of years, we're obviously getting less money each year.
Yes, sir.
And there was a time when they were allowing us a 5% increase, trying to do some catch-up. And I've checked the numbers, I haven't looked at them recently, but I have checked the numbers in the past, and all of the adjoining counties to Wayne County are funding their schools as a percentage of their total budget more than Wayne County.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so,
Yeah, and as I think most of you are aware, at least Mr. Wood and Mr. Honeycutt has voiced that they're aware of the fact that they are behind.
they've been good to us, but it's been a long time coming.
Yes, sir.
So, okay.
Okay.
I have one question on that category. Does the Wayne County, line item include the, fees that we get from tickets and courthouse fees?
It does.
Yeah.
Fines and forfeitures.
Okay.
So is that a part of that increase? I mean, it looks like there's an increase from last year to this year.
The fines and forfeitures are not
Okay.
part.
Go ahead, Al.
Now, page 2 just breaks out what our spending looks like in the major categories. And again, what I want to point out is salaries and benefits are a significant part of what we're going to end up spending as a school system. It is basically 80% of what we have goes into our people and the benefits that's associated with it. The other categories, supplies and materials are for instruction materials, repair parts, fuel, so forth. The purchase services relate to our contract services, utilities, our insurance for property and workers' comp and so forth. And so again, just to point out the portion of the spending that is inflexible in terms of what we have. We have the people, they've got to be paid, we've got to pay for the benefits. So, again, that's what we see with most of the expenses. So I don't know if you have any questions about that, but it's mainly just from a perspective standpoint, so you can get an idea of what our spending looks like in categories. Okay, any questions? Page 3 goes into our state funding, and there are just a few things I would want to point out as it relates to our schedule here. One of the questions Mr. Henderson initially asked about was they're in categories, program reporting codes, PRCs, and that's how the state allocates the money. Our AIG category, which is PRC 034, you'll note a large increase in that category. That was one of the PRCs that we had flexibility with. So in prior years, we were transferring money out of 034 into program 010, which is open to allow us to pay any instructional person. The only ones that we can pay out of 034 are those people that are certified in AIG. So the state pulled that flexibility back from us, and so what we're gonna have to do is remove anyone that's in 010, which was about 15 teachers. And the AIG people will be paid specifically out of 034, which ends up being about 10 teachers. And so you'll see 010 is down 860 odd thousand. AIG is up. The other category I point out is that our international teachers, we expect an increase in those for this year to fill some of the vacancies that we're looking at. So I think we're going to have at least 12 additional international teachers that'll come in. And then you'll note our 031 category, which is the low wealth monies that we were getting. We talked about the fact that we were going to be about $2 million down. That was a slight increase in the initial projection, which accounts for the difference between the 2 million and the 1.9. so that increase would cover some of the salary increases and benefit increases for that category. So again, that's gonna be down $1.5 million because of the formula definition that provides the low rate funding. So, any questions?
I got a question for you on, just out of curiosity, I may be wrong, but 012 driver training, I know we allotted something like 450 or something, but he turns money back in, I guess, that he doesn't use, or we turn it
Well,
back
the
in.
money goes back in if we don't.
So that's what he actually used, or that's what was used? in-
That's what was
326,
allocated for us.
479.
That's what they gave us. That's what the state gave us for last year. And I don't know what the number's gonna be this year.
So it could be more or less than that?
It could be more or less.
Okay.
But we have a contractor in that category.
Right, but I didn't know if they based it on what, because I know used to.
They should base it on the number of students in the, that age range that we'll be taking drivers in. But I don't have the formula.
I was just curious to know if they, because if X amount of dollars was sent back last year, that's what they base it on, okay, we sent them that, we're not gonna send them that much, we'll send them what they used.
Right, they do look at the spending, and they'll make adjustments accordingly.
And the other thing I would like to point out is our 069, which is our at-risk students. So that line item is dropping, but as most of you are aware, the governor's proposing quite a large budget line item for safety and security. Part of my discussions with the county and the sheriff, we don't know how much that money is going to be. Obviously, the state budget's not going to be ratified before we have to do a lot of the things that we're doing. But again, I think as Mr. Pridgeon pointed out, I think we're going to see a substantial increase because of the need in those at-risk and safety and security areas.
Mr. Hayes, on transportation, the 56 line, where that actually went down, 241,787.
Yeah.
Did they give you any kind of explanation as to
That
why
is-
they're,
Yeah, that is their initial projection, and so once all the ratings are in, which will be sometime during the summer, they'll come back and true it up, so hopefully it will increase. But, you know, that was what they told us to start our initial plan.
okay. Do we use that money for replacement buses too, or?
No, we have a separate fund for replacement buses.
Okay.
And so whatever qualifies to be replaced, we can replace it, and then they will provide us the money in terms of what the payments will be.
Okay.
They actually make the payments,
Right.
so it's more of a payment transaction.
I ain't saying we shouldn't do it.
Can you speak to the issue of the M-class rating number line item?
I just don't have a projection for it, so I could have just put the same amount. We just have not been given an initial projection for it.
And so you want to wipe the whole line item out?
I just don't know what the number should be. I mean, I don't know if it should be 50 or 95, 25, or whatever. So, I mean, I'll be happy to put it in, and then once we get our allotment, I can true it up.
Okay, and how
But I
about,
can't give them anything to spend until we have some monies.
and your textbooks went down about $19,000 as well?
That is the initial planning number that I was given, so it's down
Okay.
$20,000.
Can I get some justification as to why we are
That's what the
decreasing
state-
that issue?
We're not decreasing it, that's what the state is providing us.
Oh, okay.
The
And-
state's been decreasing that probably for the last 7 years. It has continually dropped each year. So that's the amount of money. It used to be, you have enough money in textbooks that the adoptions and increases and updates, there was plenty of money there. they've really, just each year cut into textbook money. And, yeah, we have no say in that.
One other question. I noticed you said earlier, Dr. Dunsmore, that you had discussions with the chief of police about increasing SROs. From this, we're not expecting any kind of obligation relative to that.
That'll be county monies.
Okay.
So they've already approved 4 additional SROs. The sheriff, they've been paying additional people through overtime, but for next year's budget, he's hiring 4 additional SROs. That's already been approved.
Do we know where they're going?
I don't think they have the overall schedule completed yet, but it'll be the county schools.
I just got a text, there's 3 police cars at Carver Heights School.
CJ.
Okay.
Any other questions on what the preliminary state numbers look like? Okay, page 4. We were taking a look at what the initial county appropriation amount might look like with a few additional requests on there, and then we'll have another schedule for the additional things Dr. Dunsmore had mentioned earlier.
So I'll put that together in a spreadsheet for everybody and get that back out to you. As you look down through this, and one of the things I just want to bring to everybody's attention, there is a line item funding for Wee Wings. One of the things that's been on discussion are Wee Wings buses. We typically take buses that are put out of service, so they're shot. They retrofit them and use them for Wee Wings. And the buses we've been using just are not lasting. So we're looking now how we can replace those buses and upgrade them. And again, that's something that Mr. Honeycutt did ask me for a figure exactly on what that would be, and I'm working on that to get him.
Dr. Dunsmore, the low wealth funding, now, that is the money that's at risk because the tax rate is too low, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So if the county commissioners do, in fact, increase the tax rate a little bit, then that we would receive that money, is that correct?
And that's also one of the things that most of you are aware of. We've been working very closely with Representative Bell. He has a meeting with Senator Harry Brown, which is out of Jones and Onslow, that spearheaded the I don't know what category it was in the budget, but they had the total ADMs that you would be held harmless if you had a military base. They set the ADM at what Onslow County was, which was 23,000 students. That happened, I believe, 4 years ago on the biennium budget. Wayne County was not represented at that meeting. We do have a meeting with Senator Brown, Representative Bell, trying to see if they're going to change that ADM. I'm not real confident they'll change it this year. I think they're going to wait till next year's biennium budget. Last year, Representative Bell found that money in the state budget for us. It was a one-time, non-reoccurring. So we're working on that again, but we don't know when that's going to occur. The commissioners have told me that's something that they understand if we lose that money, they're going to have to replace for us. So that's, we have a pretty large deficit hanging out there.
Do you know what the tax rate, it's not much, it would have to be raised to get us half a cent.
Yeah, that budget, that formula is very, very, very complicated.
Well, Dr. Dunsmore,
That tax increase would not, it's got to go into effect, and it would not impact the year we're about to go into. It has to work its way through, so that we're on a base.
So you're kind of in other words, the die's already cast for the year we're going into, basically, because the tax rate was what it was.
And I think the commissioners are looking to change that and tweak that some this year. But again, we won't see the impact of that in the formula until subsequent years.
I understand.
I was gonna ask you, that tax base, you said it was a certain percentage and then they lowered it about 4-point-some%.
Yeah, and I can get you the exacts on that, so,
But what I'm asking is that the reason that we fell short with the low wealth? Or is
Yes.
it just the population of the students?
now, that's completely predicated on the revenue streams, and the low wealth funding is based on the county's ability to pay. So if the county's unable to generate the revenue, you get more low wealth supplement. The state steps in and adjusts that. So that has nothing to do with our student numbers. It's more on the county's ability. So we're kind of, as much as I hate to say it, we're bystanders in this fight. I'm encouraged that our county leadership and state leadership is very supportive and fighting for us, but there's nothing we can do but wait and see what happens. And if I would, just to follow up, we have locked down Carver Heights if there's a problem, so I'm going to excuse myself, and I'll be right back and hopefully get you some updates.
Madam Chair, I'd like,
Yes.
on page 4, I think from some of the earlier discussions that Dr. Dunsmore was talking about, as far as his presentation to the county commissioners with that teacher retention, you saying 1.7. And didn't he say something about the county commissioners that asked him to come back and give it, instead of doing the 13, to do the 5? So the 1.7 would not necessarily be accurate here if we're gonna proceed with just asking for the 5, right?
No, I think what they asked for initially, when we met with them, what they asked him to do was to come back with the 13.
Right.
All right, and everything spelled out along with the 5. And they will determine based on their budget and the money that they feel they have or will initiate, which way they feel that they can support.
Oh, okay, so we're giving them options.
Well,
Initially, when we were putting, and it has been I won't say a moving target, but things have changed as we were going. So when I was going through doing everything, I was under the impression that they were going to use the 13 schools. And so that's what I ended up putting in the budget. Now, if we need to back it down for the other number, which is, I don't know, 661 or whatever, then that can be done. We're just working on getting what we need to submit to the county, within our required time, which would be May 15th. So we've got to give them, what we anticipate our budget.
Right, but I'm also looking up here where it's talking about paving 170,000, and I think Dr. Dunsmore quoted this morning more of a figure of 850,000.
Yeah, when we initially started talking about it, we were asked to roll it out over a number of years instead of the full amount. And again, that was the conversations I was having as we were going through putting together the budget. So it wasn't a one-time shot. So if that has changed, then we can make that change here.
That is the number that I had that Dr. Dunsmore said, the 850 over 5 years, I think you said.
Over 5 years.
Over 5
would be
years.
170,000.
Okay.
That's what my notes show, Mr. Anderson.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hayes, if they want to do 5 instead of 13, then you have to do expense years, right?
If I could, the situation, the law enforcement's over there, the students.
Because you're in a budget work session.
Right.
You don't have you're not gonna have an emergency meeting or anything like that. You haven't called it for purposes of discussion of any emergency or anything like that. What we could do is take a brief recess.
Okay. Madam Chair, if we could take a brief recess so I could update the board.
Can I have a motion for a brief recess?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor of a brief recess of 10 minutes? 10 minutes at this time, please indicate by raising your right hand. Any opposed, the same? Okay, we are back into open session now with our budget workshop.
Any other questions, on page 4?
Mr. Hayes, just one last statement there. We always call it $2 million a small project fund, but, really, it's a maintenance fund. And we have maintenance budget. But I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is, it's sort of in the presentation when we talk to commissioners, but a project to me is when you build something, like a weight room. But a roof on a school, which is like $1 million,
That's a project.
but that's repaired. I mean, so it's like,
Well, it's one or the other. They're either gonna have to fund those big
but
ticket
you
maintenance.
understand,
Yeah, I
when you say
agree
it's
with
a
you.
small project budget, then the mindset, if I was a commissioner, I would think that you would use that money for construction projects, okay? But if it's, so it might be one of those things that a small project would have a dollar amount on it. And if it was something that it was in excess of a certain amount, then it wouldn't be a small, it would be a capital outlay. You see what I'm saying? And this is just conversation, I mean, we move ahead, but it's sort of like, it is somewhat confusing when you look at like, and you say it's small projects. If I was a commissioner, and I would think that was a building project, like a field house, or something.
Well, that 2 million that he's referring to, is that including the safety and security, the field house, the tennis courts, and the bleachers at Eastern Wayne High School?
No.
That is not?
No, I'm gonna ask for that separate and basically stand up and ask for that separate.
All right, well, what does the $2,000 include, $2 million include?
There's a page, page 7, that has the things that were identified, to us, from the schools. We'll talk about it in
Okay, all right.
Dr. Dunsmore, Mr. Hayes, when y'all were talking earlier in the budget about paving and that type of thing, is there any provisions to pave that side lot over there?
That was in that overall allotment. It's, we were, last year when we figured everything out, we were about $850,000 to do all our projects.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, this side lot is gravel / dirt / mud.
Well, during my wife's career, I had 32 flat tires from screws and nails out that parking lot.
Yes.
And it's a lot like where maintenance trucks have pulled up and stuff like that.
And this building's used extremely hard, and when all the conference rooms are in play and all our parking lots are full.
All right, Mr. Hayes?
Page 5. It's a breakdown of our local budget into the PRCs. I guess the big thing to note is the teacher retention is a line, $1.8 million, and low wealth replacement is a line, $2 million, which we didn't have in the current year. So that's the bulk of what we're looking at from an increase perspective. The low wealth funding is for 40 to 43 of our less seasoned teachers, from beginning teachers to 1 or 2 years.
The, line 50, 6, the transportation of pupils, how would that be different than, what is that
Just the,
specific?
the local part, if we have more expense than what we allocate for the state.
You still confuse me, what is it for?
It could be for, repairs, it could be for, salaries for the,
It says transportation of pupils. Mr. Hayes,
Transportation.
is that transportation of pupils to the early middle college?
It's just, no, it could be whatever category of expense that we have that we cannot cover from the state
In transportation?
in transportation,
Okay.
in total. So it could be any category of expense.
Then you have 706, transportation not eligible, what would that be?
It could be license plates for the buses, not the yellow buses, but the activity buses. Could be miscellaneous things that the state just will not reimburse.
It's just confusing why there are so many separate accounts on transportation. I mean,
Excuse me.
if all fall under transportation, it sounds, but anyway. Mr. Smith, I'm just curious.
Yeah, there are separate accounts, Mr. Flowers, because some of those funding sources are reimbursable and some are not. You
I
have to
see.
pay them up front.
I see.
And
So
you get reimbursed.
yeah, so you itemize those items that are right for you. Okay, that makes perfect sense. All right.
So, any additional questions as it relates to Fund 2? Okay, number 6 is our special local fund. Now, the items that are, when we look at the charter schools, we have to provide a portion of our local Fund 2 to them, based on the pupils that they would have. The items that go into local Fund 8, really would not be subject to sharing with the charter schools. And so we have our Edgewood, we have the WISH monies, we have the pre-K, North Carolina pre-K dollars. We have some special grants, NODEA, SHIFT. We have the money for the television station that Dirksen runs and so forth. And so we're looking at what the revenues are, and there may be some monies that would shift with, some of the categories that we have. Our, Medicaid money is based on the reimbursements that we're able to bill back to Medicaid, and then any of the cost sharing that we would end up getting. What we ended up taking down a little with revenues and expenses were DODEA, not knowing how all that's going to shake out for next year. And then we had another grant, a SHIFT grant that was targeted toward, I think, 6th graders with science and some other things. It looks like that's going to be cut significantly also. Everything else we just left as was until we get a better feel for what the numbers are going to look like. Impact aid, for instance, might be something that we'll lose some of the revenue.
And that's contingent on the federal budget, so when you hear anything on the news in regards to, giving that, so we get an allotment for military affiliated children, and the Federal Department of Ed is looking at vouchers. There's a lot of legislation in the House right now about vouchers, and if they start taking that money for vouchers, we're going to lose an awful lot of money. The Dudea grants, we're on the next cycle with that. They've changed the percentage of military-affiliated students for what we're eligible for. So, as Mr. Hayes said, a lot of that's on hold until the feds determine what they're going to do.
Dr. Dunmore, you said that if they approved vouchers, we would lose a lot of money. Can you elaborate on that?
So as you see, we get a percentage of money from the federal government for military-affiliated students. So what they would do is, instead of giving that money to us, they would put that in a pot, and military-affiliated students could take that and use that voucher to go to charter, private, homeschool.
I understand.
So there's a big shift within the interstate compact with school choice for military students. It's not legislated right now. There are some states that are legislating that. I think once this all shakes out at the federal level, if we maintain the day of money, I think there's going to be some restrictions with that will involve school choice.
But the money actually follows the student, right?
Mhm.
So how would that be different than, you understand what I'm saying?
Well, it's the only place it follows a student is to a charter school. But if they have a school choice, probably what you're going to see is a charter school pop up here in Wayne County specifically for the military kids.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of conversation out there in the public, and it's controversial, and with the Christian schools and all of that. And I mean, I'm on the school board, and I don't understand it oftentimes, what I'm trying to say.
So a lot of this money in these categories are in accounts that we don't have to give to other non-public school entities. But if they allow vouchers, like for the Department of Defense kids, they would be able to take that money and use it for Christian schools, private schools. That would open up a huge window that they otherwise have to fund out of pocket. So it is very controversial. It's a huge item at the federal level.
It means that we would lose the students because they would use that money
We would lose students.
to go to a
and-
private school.
Yeah, we would get a double whammy on that one.
Unless we had something at least as good to offer or better. Mr. Hayes, in your report, I didn't see any information on our sales tax or lottery funds. I know that our sales tax money and lottery fund, that we have obligated the majority of those receipts to make payments on schools we built. However, the economy has done well, and I think the lottery fund has done well, so there should be, we've allocated that money based on what the numbers were at that time. There should be some other monies in lottery funding that are not allocated. Do you have any information on that?
I do not have any information on the, what the lottery funding might look like for the year we're going into. I can give you a schedule of what the lottery dollars have been over the past.
That would take the General Assembly to change that percentage, or change that amount.
Yeah, but that money comes to the county, and the sales tax money comes to the county, and then they allocate it to us upon request. I would just like to say to the other board members that I strongly encourage you that if we have any money in the lottery funding over and above what's allocated, that we get that money and we use it for a project. Because the state doesn't have a good reputation of not taking your money out of those funds like that. So if we get it and we build a field house at Spring Creek with the money, Dr. Dunmore, on an individual year-to-year basis, then we wouldn't have to worry about it accumulating an amount in the county coffers. I would encourage the board to get that money out and use it. Because the county, if the economy goes south or sour some kind of way, I think there's a real danger that the state will take that money and use it to balance their budget. So when it happens, you can say Mr. Flowers told us.
Okay, Mr. Hayes?
Okay, page 7, would, again, show the, anticipated revenue we're gonna get provided from the state for bus funding, and then the small, the money that comes in from the county for maintenance and whatever else you wanna call it, if you don't wanna call it small projects. And so the list, it's what was turned in by the schools, with an estimate of what the cost looks like. And the list will just need to be prioritized in terms of what, the spending looks like in, what categories, who goes first, second, third, fourth, and so forth. So I think this was gonna be referred over to, the facilities committee to, look at ranking and prioritizing things. Net, the, what we were given in terms of projects and estimates of what the cost would be like, just left not even a $200,000 cushion between the $2 million and what the projects looks like, $183,000. That's just labeled contingency funds.
Mr. Hayes, in looking at this list of projects, we've gone around for years about the weight room at Spring Creek High School, and that's in my district, and we've determined that that was not a small project. And we pulled that off the list basically this year. All right, but now I see this list you're printing, that you've got at Eastern Wayne Middle, you've got a gym lobby with restroom and concession stand, $400,000 on the list. I mean, I don't understand.
This is just the list that the principals turned into us. This is that's why we're putting this back to the facilities committee to rank those. And if there's other projects, if we want those on the list, that's what we'll add for the final budget.
Do you understand my point?
Absolutely.
Do you understand? I mean, if we're gonna say $250,000 is not a small project, then why we even got a list here with $400,000?
That's been on the list every year, and we've pretty much removed it every year, because when they built that gym, that should have been added in that building project, and it wasn't.
Well, why don't we make a list and we put stuff on it and then take it off? I mean,
Well, I think this list has been turned in by the principals at their schools, and so every year that she turns in a list, this is what she puts on it.
Yes.
But it is our job to move it off if we think it needs to be moved, and to rank them in the order that we feel are priority to the lowest point.
well, I try to be gracious and look at the entire county and not politic for my district, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I said, well, let's take Spring Creek off if we can't do it, but then we get another list that looks like this, and obviously I'm going off the board.
This isn't something we approved to do, this is just a wish list.
This is what the board had asked us. They wanted to see the list from the principals, and then we will go back to the.
Well, my folks out there is quit asking.
Okay.
I guess is what I'm trying to say, they just quit asking. Anyway, let's move on.
Well, evidently, Eastern Wayne Middle has been pulled off the list, has it not been?
Well, yes, every year I've been here, yes.
Because I have not seen it on a final list. But when you pulled Spring Creek, did you put it back on?
No, I didn't do anything. I just said, well, obviously not gonna do it. Why don't we keep right on telling the folks out there at Spring Creek, year after year after year, that it's funded and we're gonna do it, and we haven't done it. And then we come in here with another list with projects bigger than that, but that was not a small capital project, but this is.
Well, this list is not public, and this hasn't been voted on, and this is by no means the list
Right,
we're
right, I
finishing.
understand. Okay.
When this list goes to the facilities committee, usually how long does it take for us to get a finalized list?
As quickly as we can rank them.
We've been asking for it about, well, the current one for the last 6 months. An update as to how are we progressing on these as the year goes through.
So would the facilities committee need the list from the school year 17-18 that indicates what has been done and what is left over? And then merge these two as you prioritize?
I definitely
Is
think,
that what we do?
That's already the plan.
I'm just asking,
Yep.
because I'm not on the facilities committee, so I just wanted to know. I wanted to make sure that those things that were not done last year are not just put aside.
Correct.
Yeah,
and every year, Ms. Burden, every year this list, is done, some of the things are not done, and there's other things added to it that come up, like there was a chiller. How much was it, Mr. Hayes, that we had to replace this
I
year?
think it was 380.
Something.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
380, I believe.
How much?
380,000, give or take.
Did you say?
380,000.
380,000. So, I mean, that one, it was a maintenance thing, it fell out of the sky and it got put on this list. So, if you had, and that was a repair that we had to do. So, you know, things, it's a moving target all the time, and I understand that, but it just doesn't seem like we have a good format, like there's $600,000 on this for a roof replacement. And that seems like that ought to be in a maintenance budget somewhere. A project, just in terminology, would be like, to me, like if we build something. But, anyway,
Mr. Hayes, do we have a bid yet for the Mount Olive bathrooms?
No, I do not have any bids.
Okay, do you know if they've been sent out yet,
Do you know, Dave?
Mr. Sauls? I know we had to do a design.
We got some bids, but I thought since we were waiting to see what the college was gonna do before we renovated anything else down there. I know we were trying to get the electrical plugs at the end of those rooms down.
I do know the last facilities meeting that we asked, just to see the bids, to see where we're at. If we could get those, that would be wonderful. That would at least give us an idea if it's just out of question or something we could do. Thank you.
and there's another thing, Mr. Hayes, on this list right here, we don't have, beside of this list, the things that were requested last year that were not done that's actually on this list.
Yeah, we're in the middle of getting a good estimate in terms of what'll be finished this year, so we can
There's a couple
provide
of
that
things
to
here, like
you.
replacing carpet. I think those things were on the other list, were they not?
I do
Yeah.
not,
Not at
Depends
Dillard's.
on the schools.
This,
Yes, it was.
Was Dillard's on there?
Yes.
Because I know that was the overall office, some stuff.
Dillard is asking for a replacement of the reception desk, carpet, and new furniture.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say is those things that were on the other previous,
yeah, we will
the $2
have a
million
list
list
of all
that
the
were not
previous.
done,
we
that's
will
been
have
placed
that.
on this list.
Carpet replacement.
Well, unless it is something major, like the repair of a roof, shouldn't we complete the list from last year?
We
And
should,
then,
yes, we
yeah,
should.
I mean, unless there's something major coming up, since it's in this category, which I agree with you, I don't think it should be in this category. When you have those large items, I think it should be under maintenance. But I'm learning, so I may be wrong. But all I'm saying is it possible to complete a list for 17-18? As far as we could do that, and then if the biggest item on this list for 18-19 is to do a roof, and we know that has to be done, then include that. Rather than to continue to prioritize and get the same responses from the schools every year, because the reason why they give you the same response is because it hasn't been done.
Right, and in this list, okay, the numbers, run up there to $2.7 million, and I know you're accumulating something to ask the county commissioners in approval of the
Oh, I
budget.
see it. Okay.
But to me, if we're gonna use this as maintenance money, we need to say these projects we plan to do, and make that like $1.5 million, and then have $500,000 that's just on here as contingency. Because every dime you've got allocated to a project. So the assumption is, as a board member here, that if we approve this, it is funded and approved, we're going to do it. But that's not what's happened. Because I've told my folks out at Spring Creek High School, it's funded and approved and it's going to happen. But it did not happen because you didn't have a contingency fund to replace the chiller with. You see what I'm saying? So the method by how it's done, in my opinion, could be improved. It needs to be a contingency fund of about $500,000. We say we're gonna do this $1.5 million in projects out there, if it is projects. And then if we have a contingency that's beyond the $500,000, it needs to be taken out of fund balance.
So really, all what we're doing is we're just reapproving a wish list, whether
Yes,
it
sir.
gets done or not.
And there's no stability in what, as a board member, I tell my folks out there, because I tell them something's been funded and approved and it don't happen. Do you understand? I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult, but it seems like there's a better way of doing this. And I think maybe the key would be to have about $500,000 in contingency fund for a maintenance project that pops up, and you're gonna have it. No doubt about it, you're gonna have it. So to budget all your money as if, you know, it's gonna be blue skies and sunshine for the next year is not realistic. So, anyway, I've said enough. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Mr. Hayes?
I have no, unless there are any additional questions,
Yeah, I just have one addition that I have then.
All right, Dr. Dunsmore?
One of the other questions, and I'll have that priority list for the commissioners out prior to tomorrow morning, so you have those talking points and where we can go. And I've already, as I mentioned, have asked Mr. Honeycutt that I can formally present that to the Board of Commissioners, and then we can do a resolution on that. The only other thing I wanted to add was on the K-3 positions. Mr. Hayes, bless his heart, and the other finance officers across the state, as everybody's aware, the K-3 class size initiative is a 4-year rollout. Next year, everybody was to be held harmless. This board voted that we are going to the 4th year. What the state has done, they are going to fund that by 25% next year. Now, at my level with superintendents, and Mr. Hayes, jump in, your level, most of the school systems are not lowering class size with that money. They're going to wait a year and use that for whatever. We've run the numbers. We can move to year 2 on that initiative, taking that money the state's giving us and advancing ahead by 1 year. And it's basically not going to cost us but 2 positions. If the board wants us to look at the going to year 3, we can run those numbers. As everyone aware, if we go to year 4, it's 1.7 million. So we don't have to make a decision on that right away, but this food for thought for the next board meeting.
Could you repeat those figures, please, if we go for, I think you said year 2?
Yes.
What is the cost to the district?
2 teaching positions.
All right, and if we go to 3?
We're going to have to run those exact numbers. We haven't
Okay.
put those clear down. You know, my recommendation, because of the cost to the system and the unknowns we have in the budget, I think it would be we'd probably be the only system in the state that's gonna go to year 2 and use that money. So I think that would be a very proactive thing to do. We will have the numbers, Mr. Hayes, we can get those out to them probably by middle of next week.
Right.
And what year 3 would be, and as everyone is aware, year 4 would be 1.7 million.
Dr. Dunsmore, and listening to what you said, okay, the state, in the next budget cycle is gonna allocate 25% of their goal, all right? And my understanding of what our board did is we asked you, to take the elementary failing schools and, begin a process to implement it, and then we backed up on that. I made the motion and asked for a request of what we could handle based on capacities and things, and you to come a recommendation. And that was my understanding of how we were proceeding on that. Now, you tell me that the majority of the school systems statewide, that they're gonna take this 25% money, but they're not gonna implement anything, which is exactly, my understanding of what the history has been, is that the state requested these smaller class sizes and funded some money with it originally. And the school systems took that money and used it for art classes and PE classes, which I have no problem with. And now the state has come down and backed up to the original request, and the school systems are saying that they're not going to begin the process again?
I'm not willing to speak for the other school systems. I'm merely speaking on what the chatter is out there. I think the state's intent of that money is for us to start using it to get our art, music, and PE teachers out of the 001 category and create a separate fund.
So you don't think that the purpose of the money is to reduce class size?
I think what they're holding us harmless to next year is getting art, PE, and music and the arts out of the general category and having a line item, because that's what they're going to separate and line item teach us or fund us at, and work on the take the additional allotted teachers for the lower class size then and put into that 01. They want us to separate those accounts.
And the state's told us that we've got to start to use a new purpose code for those teachers that are art and PE and so forth. So they're already starting the process to be able to identify, who's in those categories.
So they know how much money it costs to fund that?
Yes. That's all I have.
That's all I have.
All right. That is our topic for today, so I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Before you make the motion to, have the motion to adjourn, can I get some clarity from Dr. Dunsmore as to what his specific, requests will be going to the county commissioners as far as, our budget request? Because I know you had made mention of the 13 schools versus the 5 schools.
Yeah, I'm going to request that the 13 schools, as well as the 0.5% across the board. I'm asking for everything above and beyond, and I also have requested that I be given the opportunity to present that formally in front of the board and then come back to you all at our end of the month meeting for a resolution asking the county to fund that and put them on notice. We're asking for that money, and they can do with it what they will.
Okay, in your request too, are you going to be placing another line item for the safety and security, that $540,000? So that would be an additional request?
Yes, sir.
And how about the major capital outlays like the Spring Creeks and Rosewoods and the gymnasiums?
Yeah. So on that last page, so basically is what Mr. Flowers has said, is looking, rather than taking a contingency out of what we already have, that's taking them off the hook, I want the additional money. and moving forward to keep funding that. I think when I was brought here as superintendent, help me out, we had a little over $3 million sitting in the county. It was unused out of that pot. So we used that to replace the roof at Spring Creek High School. We used that to replace the roof at the Wayne Academy building. We used that money to do some cleanup work at Goldsboro High School, because one of the things the commissioner said, if you're not going to use the money, we're not going to give it to you. Well, we've used it, plus some, because we've exhausted some other things in some other areas. We now have a hard list. The weight room, or whatever you want to call it, at Spring Creek and Rosewood. We now have a roof at an elementary school. We have these large ticket items. $2 million isn't even beginning to scratch that. So I want to put those down and put those out. And I want the opportunity to stand in front of the commissioners as superintendent. These are a priority for our students' health, safety, and well-being. And if they don't want to fund it, it's on the record that we're asking for it.
Dr. Dunsmore, if we could get correct me if I'm wrong now, the sales tax money that the county has in their coffers is our money. We have to tie it to a request.
Well, we've already allocated what we've had up to point for our debt service for the 2 middle schools. And
I understand that we've allocated a payment each year out of that. But the sales tax money and the lottery money, I think sales tax receipts and lottery money is more than the current payment.
No, I don't think it is, but I'll run those, we'll get those numbers.
But that's I mean, and if it is more,
then, yeah,
then I don't think that let's say it's $200,000 more. I mean, it ain't got to be $2 million more. Let's say it's $200,000 more this year. All right, then I think that we should use that money for these projects this year. That we should not leave those monies laying in the county's coffers. But just,
Gotcha.
Whatever the numbers are, if it's not there, it's not there. I'm used to not having enough.
I want to make sure that Mr. Henderson's question was answered in terms of what you will be asking the county commissioners for.
Because one of the other things I would like to suggest that you do is with these big ticket items that are on this sheet that has been passed out on page 7, the $250,000 for Brogdon Middle School, the $600,000 for North Drive Elementary, and the $400,000 for Eastern Wayne Middle. I think those ought to go on the that capital outlay, along with the other items that have been presented last year.
I disagree with that.
You disagree with that? Why? Because where are we gonna find these $400 and $500, $600?
But because you are putting them automatically over the list that we haven't seen for 17, 18. And I think you need to look at, well, Eastern Wayne is a school in my district, and I would love to see them have a nice lobby and the bathrooms, but how long has it been since we built out there? And is that more important at this time than something else on this list?
Mount Olive Middle on the bottom down there, Mr. Henderson.
So what?
But it's not ranked, that's just by
that was
wish
just
list.
on the
There's no rank.
Mount Olive Middle on the building bathrooms, that was in last year's project.
Yeah.
You see, there it is again, so.
I thought he
was
said
just not-
Eastern Wayne Middle.
I did say Eastern Wayne, but.
We see Mount Olive Middle on the very bottom, that $150,000, that was on last year's list.
And we've been at it all year long to try
But
to
now
get
I
that
can see
complete.
that one because it was on last year's list.
But what I'm trying to say, it was $2 million last year, it's $2 million this year. So that money, there's monies over there that haven't been done out of that $2 million should roll into this.
I agree.
But all I'm saying, Pat, is put it out there to the commissioners. We know we're not gonna get it, but at least they may give us something that would possibly fund one of these items. That's all I'm saying, not necessarily say it has to be done.
I think a lot of that'll be shown and cleared up too tomorrow with the tour. They can point it out.
Yeah, but sometimes when you make the list very long, you get nothing on the list. That's all I'm saying.
Well, my mindset, like the Mount Middle bathrooms down there, that was funded last year. They should not be on this list. That was already funded last year.
It might have been the year before, too.
Yeah.
Couldn't think of it.
All right. May I ask this one question? I don't want to prolong this, but if we put something on the list and we vote that this is the priority list for the 17-18 school year, and then we don't get it done in 17-18, so we put it on the list for 18-19, shouldn't that be done before anything new is done, unless it is an emergency?
You would like to think that, but it hasn't really worked like that.
And if it is not done for a reason, does it come back to the board so that we know it's not done? Because many times when we vote on items, we think they're being done. And maybe or maybe not, there are no questions. So we don't know that they're not done unless something comes up and we are told, well, we had to use this money to do this. Then we realize that it hasn't been done. So do you come back to the board and let us know? Or do you send us a notice and let us know? I mean, if you have a roof that has to be done and you can't do the bathrooms for $2 million, are we informed that the bathrooms at Mount Olive Middle will not be done this year because during the hurricane, the roof blew off another school building and it's gonna cost us $1.9 million? Do we get that information?
Yeah, we've talked, to use the Mount Olive bathroom as an example, we're in fact meeting with President Kerstetter tomorrow to see what their intents are with that building, as we have put that on hold because if they're interested in purchasing it and we're looking at a new building, I don't think it would be prudent to upgrade bathrooms. If they say they're not going down that road, then yes, that's going to be a priority.
All right. Any other discussions about the budget itself? If not, I think I have a motion.
I
Don't.
vote we adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion and a second that we adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor indicate by a show of raising your right hand. Opposed, the same? Okay, motion carries.